Sun Ben hiding in the dark by Zhou Dedong. Sun Ben was hiding in the dark, in the dead of night, with everyone in the world asleep. He lay there in the darkness with his eyes open, uneasy, restless, and anxious. He had done plenty of shameful things, but he was not afraid of ghosts knocking at his door. What he feared were people like himself. He believed people were scarier than ghosts. Ghosts only put on an act. People delivered the real thing. He was a man of deep scheming. No one knew what he kept inside. Nothing that showed on his face had anything to do with what was inside him. He hid in the deepest part of himself. He hid in the dark. Normally, he often suffered from insomnia, but tonight he felt it was something else. He knew something was wrong. Of course it was wrong. Tonight was the first anniversary of Li Zhijun's death. Just after getting off work, he had felt there was an extra pair of eyes in the room. By then the sky was already dark. He turned and swept the room once with his eyes, and immediately found a photograph of Li Zhijun on his desk. It was a photo of him and Li Zhijun together, but his half had been cut away. Only Li Zhijun remained, smiling at him. Confused, he wondered how, since Li Zhijun died, he'd put all her photos through the shredder. How had one suddenly turned up again, and on the very day of her death anniversary, no less. He calmly held the photo's gaze. After a long while, he picked it up and carefully put it in the drawer. Then Sun Ben hid in the dark. Though a ghostly chill filled the room, he was certain that behind the incident lurked a person. Someone who hated him to the bone. But who was it? The night deepened. Sun Ben gradually felt that things were not as complicated as he had imagined because he heard a faint rustling outside the window. He pricked up his ears. The sound vanished again. After a while it came again. Who's outside the door? He asked in a low voice. I'm Zhijun. Li Zhijun. A chill passed over him like wind sweeping across a field of wheat. He steadied himself and said, "Come in." After a long while the door really did creak open. Sun Ben was hiding in the dark, and the woman stood in the moonlight, like the stories we heard as children. Her hair hung loose and covered her face. We could not see Sun Ben. We could only see her. Cha Ying worked as a sales manager at a company. That company belonged to the bully group. She and Li Zhijun were close friends. Li Zhijun was the chairwoman of the bully group. When Li Zhijun was born, her skull could not pass through the birth canal for a long time, and the resulting deformity left her face slightly twisted. Modern medicine could not cure this illness. Li Zhijun's parents were deeply upset by it. In material things and in spirit alike, they did everything they could to make sure she was fully cared for. With her parents' careful nurturing, Li Zhijun grew up healthy. Her inborn defect never affected her character in the slightest. She was refined, kind, and decisive. From a young age, she was obsessed with art, and her paintings were as bright and clear as sunlight. No one knows when Cha Ying first realized a terrible truth. She had fallen in love with Li Zhijun. She felt sorry for Li Zhijun, worried about Li Zhijun, missed Li Zhijun, longed for Li Zhijun. If that was not love, then what was it? Terrified, she buried that secret deep inside herself. Li Zhijun never noticed a thing. One day she invited Cha Ying to her house. Cha Ying asked, "What's the fun part?" Li Zhijun said, "Working." Cha Ying guessed at once, "Mowing the lawn?" Li Zhijun lived in a villa out in the suburbs. The lawn below her house was broad with a few small white sculptures scattered across it. Clumps of green bamboo grew around the west side of the lawn, and birds with names no one knew often flew back and forth among them. Cha Ying put on a t-shirt, jeans, sneakers, gloves, a baseball cap and sunglasses, and went over. She loved mowing the lawn with Li Zhijun, like a pair of happy gardeners. They pushed the old mower slowly forward, watching the grass blades whirl under the teeth of the blade. Cha Ying said, "It's like shaving a man's beard." Li Zhijun giggled. And Sun Ben was hiding in the dark. Li Zhijun and Sun Ben had met online. He too studied art, and the two of them got along wonderfully. Very quickly he professed his love for Li Zhijun. Sun Ben had grown up in the countryside. Though he had done very well at university, after graduation he was sent back to his hometown. He struck out alone for the city in search of a future, and now worked as a designer at a company where he was getting nowhere. The grass was cut. It lay smooth and even, a fresh green spread out across the ground, the air thick with the scent of crushed grass. The sunlight was abundant but gentle. All around was quiet. Li Zhijun had finished telling her story with Sun Ben. Cha Ying grew quieter and quieter. Li Zhijun was full of fantasies about Sun Ben. Every time she saw his name online, it was as if she saw a clever, bright face. But the real Sun Ben was hiding in the dark. Li Zhijun had never told him that she was the daughter of a tycoon, and she had never told him about her defect. She felt that none of it had anything to do with love. At last she agreed to meet him. That day she invited Cha Ying along. The place was a bar. Sun Ben had already been waiting there for some time. He was an ordinary-looking man. If he stood among several men, a woman would not notice him at first glance. As a rule, when two girls turn up for a meeting, the prettier one is the star and the less pretty one is just a foil. Beforehand, Li Zhijun had not described what she and Cha Ying looked like, but when they walked toward him, he stood up and kept smiling faintly at Li Zhijun. Li Zhijun thought happily this must be telepathy. When they came closer, he showed not the slightest surprise at Li Zhijun's face. Looking into her eyes, he said softly,
"Hello? Hello?"
After the three of them introduced themselves, they sat down and began to talk. As long as Li Zhijun was talking, Sun Ben listened with a smile. Gradually, his gaze began to wander. Every so often, he glanced toward the side of Li Zhijun, as if uneasy. Cha Ying sat beside Li Zhijun, saying nothing, staring coldly at Sun Ben. Her gaze carried the chill of ice and snow banked up for eons, seeping bit by bit into his marrow. At last, he shuddered. The glass slipped onto the table and shattered into pieces. Li Zhijun jumped up in a flurry. "Oh, are you all right?" Sun Ben quickly pressed a napkin over his finger and joked, "I was listening so closely I lost myself." Li Zhijun said, "You're bleeding, aren't you?" "Let me see." Sun Ben said, "When I was a kid working back home, cutting my finger was common. It's nothing. Let me check whether there's any glass shard in the cut." Li Zhijun said anxiously. Sun Ben firmly refused Li Zhijun's kindness. A man isn't that delicate. Cha Ying did not move. She kept staring at him with the same cold look. Li Zhijun changed, as if she had become someone else entirely, happier, more tender. Her room was almost covered with portraits of Sun Ben. Under Li Zhijun's brush, Sun Ben was subtly made handsome, and his eyes began to shine. This is the magic of love. Li Zhijun was sunk in the river of love and forgot the passage of time. One day she suddenly realized she had not seen Cha Ying for a long time, and had not called her either. Wasn't that choosing romance over friendship? She called Cha Ying at once and invited her over. That day they did not mow the lawn. They sat on the grass chatting. But as they talked, Li Zhijun could not help telling the story of Sun Ben again. She sounded as though she were telling an unreal fairy tale. At last she said unexpectedly, "We have already chosen the day for the church wedding. These days I have been sewing my own wedding dress." Cha Ying kept looking at the snow-white sculptures without saying a word. They were two abstract pieces, one a female figure made from triangles, the other a male figure made from squares. Li Zhijun said again, "At first I wanted to cover my face with a veil that day. But he wouldn't agree. He said he wanted everyone to see your face. In my eyes, you are the most beautiful bride." Cha Ying suddenly spoke. "Do you know what I've been doing lately?" Li Zhijun froze. She felt that something in Cha Ying's eyes had changed. "I've been following Sun Ben." "Why? Why were you following him?" "He's gay." Sun Ben was gay. Cha Ying took leave from work, then vanished like a shadow. She trailed Sun Ben day and night, and finally discovered the secret. She took photos, then she invited him to the bar where they had first met. When those photos were laid out before Sun Ben, the light in his eyes cooled bit by bit. He surely could not figure out how Cha Ying had taken them. Their trysts were always at night, with the door locked and the curtains drawn. Unless Cha Ying was a fly on the wall. "Why did you deceive Li Zhijun's feelings?" Cha Ying asked coldly. "Now I don't have to hide it anymore. I don't love women. I got close to Li Zhijun only because I wanted a backer in this society. In fact, I had already learned everything about her family long ago," he replied coldly. He loved another man. She loved another woman. So between him and her there could only be coldness. In the end, they reached an agreement. He would give up Li Zhijun and Cha Ying would not spread the photos. The next day, Sun Ben resigned and disappeared. From then on, Sun Ben hid in the dark. No one knew that he had already locked onto a new target. A girl whose father was a government official and whose face was not crooked the way Li Zhijun's was. The next day, Li Zhijun called Cha Ying again and invited her to mow the lawn. Li Zhijun said nothing. She and Cha Ying pushed the mower forward in silence. Cha Ying wanted to find something to say that would cheer her up, but she did not know what. At last they switched off the mower and sat down. Fresh green filled the world, and the air was so clean it seemed almost not to be air. "How beautiful," Cha Ying said. "It just lacks a little red," Li Zhijun said quietly. Cha Ying turned to look at her. She turned to look back at Cha Ying. Then she smiled faintly. "Do me a favor. Take all those paintings in my room to him, will you?" One day later, when Cha Ying arrived at work in the morning, someone told her, "Something's happened at the chairman's house." She rushed out and drove straight to Li Zhijun's home. Li Zhijun, wearing the wedding dress she had sewn herself, lay flat on that broad lawn. Blood bloomed among the grass like flowers, a sight that stabbed at the eyes. Several general managers were there, pacing silently around the lawn. Li Zhijun's mother collapsed over her pale body, crying as if her heart would break. Cha Ying stood frozen in the distance, remembering how Li Zhijun had said just yesterday that the lawn was missing a little red. She could no longer cry. The world is a painting and can never be perfect. Li Zhijun had taken her blood as paint to make up for what was missing. Her body had not changed, only her shadow had grown very long. And that shadow moved toward him step by step. "What are you doing here?" Sun Ben asked. She stopped and drew a deep breath. "Do you remember the grass field at my house?" she said. Sun Ben said nothing. "Everyone who has seen it says it's beautiful, only it lacks a little red." Sun Ben still said nothing. "Tonight, I want to come borrow a little Sun Ben, hidden in the dark." Suddenly laughed. The shadow trembled. Slowly, she lifted the long hair that covered her face and turned stiffly, searching for something. Even then, she still had not seen where Sun Ben was. There were many corners in the room that the moonlight could not reach, black as pitch. "Did you bring the bucket?" Sun Ben suddenly asked. This time it was the shadow's turn to say nothing. Sun Ben, hidden in the dark, finally began to emerge bit by bit. He slowly walked to the basin and stopped. He kept looking at the pair of bright eyes hidden behind the thick hair. Suddenly he opened his mouth and bared his teeth. Moonlight shone on those 2 rows of ghastly white bones, sharp as a wolf's. Then he stiffly raised one arm, bit down hard and would not let go. At last blood began to flow from the arm into the basin. The blood was astonishingly plentiful, like tap water, making a rushing sound as it quickly overflowed the basin. The shadow trembled more and more violently. When Sun Ben had finished, he tenderly licked at the wound over and over with his tongue. He said, "Take it away. Next time, bring a bigger container." "All right." Then he slowly walked away and returned to the dark. The shadow picked up the basin and hurried out of the room. By the time Cha Ying left Sun Ben's door, her face had already gone white with terror. She hurried along street after street paved with nightmares and staggered home. To avenge the one she loved, she had come up with this clumsy plan. She had spent the whole morning rummaging for the photo of Li Zhijun and Sun Ben together. After the dead of night fell and all was quiet, she began to disguise herself, put on a long robe and powder her face white. It was so quiet around her that she seemed to see pairs of owl eyes hidden in the trees. Her heart beat harder and harder. When she finished the last step of the disguise, drawing all her hair down over her face, she suddenly felt that she had truly become a ghost, and that her body was only a vessel. She even felt that the wronged souls drifting through the night sky took her for one of their own and began to gather around her, brushing against her, pressing close, teasing her. When she stepped out the door, she felt that her steps no longer belonged to her but to someone else, light and slow as if she were walking on cotton and no longer in control. She began to fear herself. "So I advise you, never go around pretending to be a ghost. I have given that warning to many unreal people. If you do that kind of thing in the dead of night, you may well sink into the role you are playing and never be able to break free again." By the time Cha Ying saw her own shadow slowly moving across Sun Ben's window, she was already certain that she was no longer Cha Ying. She had never imagined that after entering Sun Ben's room, she would see that horrifying scene. She was certain the Sun Ben who emerged from the dark was not human. How could that possibly have been a human being? His teeth were too white, his blood too thin. That was his true side. Normally, she could never have seen that side, because normally she was only a person. But just now she had become a ghost, and so she saw it. Then she wondered whether this unfathomable Sun Ben had seen through her and was turning the fright back on her. She was still holding the basin. She looked inside by the light of the street lamp, and her eyes flew wide open. The basin hit the ground with a smack, and the blood was green. She suddenly remembered that at the bar that day, Sun Ben's hand had been cut and bled, yet he absolutely would not let anyone look at it. She turned back stupidly and saw that Sun Ben's window was black and murky, endlessly deep. Dead silence lay between heaven and earth. Sun Ben was hiding in the dark. Sun Ben had returned to the dark. Darkness was his world. The moment he saw Li Zhijun's photograph, he began guessing at the hand behind it. He was half right. He began to think up ways to deal with it. His mind was full of countless even more terrifying methods. So he began looking for plastic bags, green liquid, and the like. Those were his weapons. He could not sleep. He could not possibly sleep. He waited. She finally came, and then she left again. Now he had won. Step by step he returned to the bed in the dark. He was an animal of the dark, able like an owl to make out the texture of an enemy or prey in the dark. Suddenly he discovered that his territory had been invaded. There was someone lying on his bed. Sun Ben was dead, stabbed to death. The killer was a man, Sun Ben's former boyfriend. He had once appeared in the photos Cha Ying secretly took. Yes, from then on Sun Ben was hidden forever in the dark.